So, Senator Sampson, thanks very much for joining us. I appreciate it.
It's always a pleasure joining you, Liz.
It was a long night.
Yeah, it was long.
It was not optimal the way things happened. I mean, you spent a lot of time basically wrangling your members. At one point, you had a member who refused to show up, Senate Majority Leader Pedro Espada. Do you think that the way that this came out, finally I know that there's a budget and lawmakers are getting paid, but it was clearly not the best result for New York?
You know what, Liz, just put the process aside, look at the results. The budget has been passed, FMAP contingency. We also passed the property tax cap, which I will think eventually we will get a property tax cap sometime this year. We also passed the gas drilling moratorium. And in addition, we came away with a three-way framework on CUNY-SUNY, which I think is very important. I want to give credit to Senator Bill Stikowski from Buffalo and also Senator Foley from Suffolk County, because if it wasn't for them and the position that they took, we wouldn't be dealing with this issue.
Okay, a three-way framework, that's an interesting way to describe it, because the governor this morning said that he doesn't know what framework the Senate is talking about, and he couldn't provide any details. So what details are there, if any, or is it merely just an agreement that you're all going to come back and try and work this thing out?
No, Liz, there was a meeting with his secretary, Dean Fullhan from the Assemblyman's office, and Paul Rivera from my office, in which they broke out a framework dealing with the CUNY-SUNY issue. They are negotiating the details, but there is a meeting of the minds that this is going to get done, and it's about, as we say, the devil is in the details and just putting the details together.
Okay, but what does the framework look like then? I mean, what can you tell us, and particularly for our viewers, this is a very important issue. I mean, obviously the whole of UB 2020, which is a really key redevelopment plan, the whole reason why Bill Stikowski was holding out to begin with, hinges on the ability for SUNY empowerment to get passed.
Well, there's going to be parts that deal with that, other parts that deal with rational tuition, but we're just trying to get down the details. We're going to be speaking to those institutions. We're also speaking to the chancellor of both CUNY and SUNY and getting their input and making sure that the legislation passes both houses and is signed by the governor.
Okay, but what I'm hearing at this moment is there are no details at all. In fact, we don't know by how much, which universities would be able to raise tuition, by how much they would be able to raise tuition, whether TAP would be increased to offset that tuition increase, how much procurement freedom these universities would have. I mean, those are the kind of details that we're talking about, right?
Those details are being negotiated and worked upon, and in order for the bill to pass, a lot of the details dealing with the TAP, dealing with the rational tuition, dealing with procurement, dealing with the public-private partnership, are very important to all different members in our conferences. Those issues will be addressed that were brought up during this whole period of negotiation.
Okay, because there is some feeling that this was done, this statement, and it was put out as a one-house statement. Only yourselves and Senators Stikowski and Foley, the two really big holdouts on this, on voting on the revenue bill because they were waiting for a SUNY empowerment plan. That's who was on this statement. Generally speaking, when there's an agreement in Albany, we see a joint statement that might come out from the governor, the Assembly, and yourself.
As I indicated, the details of that agreement are being worked out. When those details are worked out, there will be not only a joint statement, but hopefully a joint announcement with all parties to show them that we have put forth this legislation. But once again, I want to really congratulate my colleagues, Senator Bill Stikowski and also Senator Foley. If they did not take their position, this wasn't even on the radar screen at any level. It was not on the radar screen. Not only is it on the radar screen, but we're going to get legislation, but also during the interim, there was a lot of discourse and debate with a lot of members had concerns about this empowerment aspect. And, you know, Reverend Diaz on the floor yesterday talked about, he was concerned about whether this would remain affordable for those students. These are the issues that we're addressing during these negotiations to make sure that this bill passes both houses.
What are your thoughts about the governor saying that he would actually bring the legislature back in October to try and get a property tax deal? I mean, certainly this is something that the unions are not really favorable of, and that's part of the reason why the Assembly hasn't managed to pass it yet, because they're very closely allied with NYSET. What makes the governor think that if he drags everybody back again, that he'll have any more luck than he did this time around?
Let me tell you about property tax. Property tax is a very key issue. We have always talked about it in our conference. Deputy Majority Leader Klein has always talked about this issue. We need to do something for the voters of the state of New York who are house rich but cash poor. We have to make sure it's not enough to give someone a check. We have to do more than that. There needs to be structural reform dealing with property taxes.
Okay,
but Liz, this is something that we've been advocating. If you have looked at the prior majority, Westchester is #1 with respect to property taxes. During the 25-year reign of the Republicans in the majority, property tax in Nassau County went up 330%. In Suffolk County, 550%.
Okay, but Senator, with all due respect, as of right now,
I like that, with all due respect.
zero relief is being provided to these people. Zero. No check, A. No property. You're talking about star rebate is what you're talking about, right?
Mm-hmm.
And no cap. So, and no
We passed the cap. We passed the cap.
You did, but a one-house bill in Albany.
We passed the cap yesterday.
Yes, you
there are
did.
a lot of one-house bills that have been passed, but eventually have become into law because they start the debate. I think there is enough pressure, there's enough mounting concern in the public in the state of New York that they want to deal with property tax. They look to see what was done in